Hi, I'm Mike Troy, editor of Retail Leader. Welcome to the Retail Leader and Progressive Grocer live video studio here at the FMI Midwinter Executive Conference. I'm joined by Bernard Goor, VP of Retail and Consumer Goods at Oracle. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Let's talk a little about disruption and everything that's going on in the retail industry. It's a fascinating time with everything being influenced by technology and a lot of transformation going on. Just talk a little bit about how Oracle's powering that transformation.
Well, thanks for asking, and it's indeed a fantastic time to work in the industry. I think we're going to see massive amount of changes over the next 5 to 10 years. And a lot of the changes is being brought upon by a massive influx of new technologies in the store, in the supply chain. But what's very important, I think, is to understand how to leverage those technologies to power the digital transformation. And what I've seen is even the word digital transformation is not very clear. So what do we mean by digital transformation? It's the process by which information is being handed over to a person for that person to make the best optimized decision in real time at that point in time, both consumers and companies.
Right.
So this notion of immediacy, this notion of real time, this notion of information being delivered to them so that they can make the best optimal decision, whether it's a consumer at the shelf, whether it's an employee having to make a decision in the supply chain. That to us is digital transformation. Okay. The immediacy of the information served up to people so that they can make the best optimized decision.
So those are the type of problems that you're solving for customers.
This is a type of problem that the industry is going to have to solve to really keep up with the change and the amount of transformation taking place. Now, what's very difficult is that there's an enormous amount of new technologies coming up. And I even wrote them down because it's so hard to understand, to get a grasp on every one of them. But if you look at chatbots, beacons, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, machine learning, cognitive analytics, RFID, IoT, indoor positioning systems, shelf sensors, video analytics, it's absolutely overwhelming. And if you don't really understand what the strategy is that you want to pursue, you can do test and learns with no sense of what the destination is and get lost.
I think if it's challenging for you, it's really challenging for retailers and suppliers that are all trying to sort out where do we channel our energies to, pursue the sort of the low-hanging fruit or the readily graspable type of opportunity.
Right. Absolutely. So we spend a lot of time, obviously, solving big problems in the retail and consumer goods industry, but also working with those technologies that we don't own so that we can serve up those solutions that integrate those technologies into our solutions. That's where I think the value is of the role of a solution provider like.
So you've been here at the Midwinter for a few days.
Yes.
A lot of conversations with folks.
Yes.
What are you hearing from people? Is there like one main problem that everybody wants to address, like this year and then say even longer term?
Yeah, we hear a lot of, again, technology buzzwords floating around, and I think one of the speakers yesterday said it very well. What's very important is to truly understand the strategy that you want to deploy. And by strategy, what's really important is to understand that you have to look at two sides of the same coin. One is the front end, one is the back end. On the front end side, retailers and consumer goods companies have to deliver seamless experiences to their consumers across their entire shopping journey.
And by front end, you mean the customer facing?
Customer facing. And then on the back end, they have to digitize their supply chain to accelerate how they can fulfill their promise to the consumer. So there's really two sides. And I think if companies do those two strategies really well, they will win. So the front end about deliver seamless experiences to the consumers across their entire shopping journey. If we take that one and start there, what's really important is this blending of digital and physical. Obviously bringing digital into the store, but sometimes also bringing physical into the digital by leveraging digital to bring people around physical events, which we've seen happen in a number of segments in the consumer goods industry. So that's very important, and in order to succeed, to get the hearts and minds of the consumers throughout that entire journey, there's a process that companies will have to deploy around 4 major steps. First, know your consumers. Second, engage with them. Third, convert them. And fourth, grow their lifetime value. So those 4 steps are really important if you truly want to win around the seamless experience side of that coin, if you will.
That sounds like a simple roadmap, 4 steps, but it's there's a lot of complexity that goes into executing those 4 steps.
Yes, and that's where technology can help. Mm-hmm. For example, if you truly want to be the leader in knowing your consumer, you can't rely only on your first-party data. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to enhance your own data store of consumer data with second and third-party data to make sure that you enrich the information that you have about your consumers. So that technology exists today and can be leveraged in a privacy-safe way, so that you can market to not only your consumers, but you can also look for lookalike segments and expand your audience in a way that allows you to grow your audience over time. So that's step number 1. Step number 2, then how do you reach out to them? So you've got to be able to take that information about the consumer and use it to drive marketing engagement across paid, earned, and owned media channels. Mm-hmm. And they're very, very complementary. And you got to make sure that every time you leverage that information to connect with the consumers across any of the touch points, every time they then engage in return by clicking a link or clicking a particular image or engaging with you in whichever way, you continue to enhance the profile of the consumer. So it's a virtuous cycle that allows you to capture better and better information, that allows you to be more and more personalized, consistent, relevant, and timely in your communications, which ends up then leading to how you can convert the consumer. Converting a consumer is a journey in and of itself. Yeah. So by the time they get to your transaction platforms, the store, or the e-commerce platform, they're already preconditioned by the interactions they've had with the brand to select your brand versus somebody else's. And then
select your brand in-store or online.
Exactly, exactly. And complete the journey, complete the purchase in-store at the moment of purchase, or complete the basket online. And I think it's really important because it's not by happenstance. People are preconditioned by way of, we know them better, we can personalize the message, we engage with them across all the touch points, and in doing so, they're more likely to purchase your product at the moment of purchase.
You mentioned touch points. We didn't even touch on mobile, which is like touch point number 1.
Absolutely.
So I know Oracle offers solutions in all these different areas.
Absolutely.
Touch on mobile for a little bit.
No, it's absolutely critical, and mobile is changing very rapidly, because how you're going to interact with the mobile platform, obviously, one of the constraints in the past has been interacting with the retail application on the mobile device. Mm-hmm. But now with the chatbots coming up, it's going to be an app-less world where you're going to be able to communicate with consumers in the store without the consumers having to be on the retail application. So it's going to be an app-less world where you're going to be able to send them personalized offers, personalized contents without having them sign up to the retail application. So digital is obviously extremely important. Everybody said that more and more of the buying is done online, much more now, about 70% of the purchase journey in store is influenced by digital. What's going to be very important is for the brands to influence the shopper all the way to the moment of purchase to make sure they can guide that shopper to buy that product.
Take a minute to talk about apps versus chatbots, because I have heard that early on with mobile, everybody had to have an app.
Right.
And there was a proliferation of apps.
Right.
Now chatbots are said to be sort of diminishing the need for an app because most people only use 4 or 5 apps.
And it's very much an emerging technology. If I have to look at the NRF buzzwords, that was probably the newer buzzword that was circulating around. It's the ability to use the messaging platform to communicate with consumers, the messaging platform that they have on their mobile.
Yeah.
So it makes communicating with consumers a lot more ubiquitous. And I think we're going to see a lot of that happen, not only related to the consumer, but also in the supply chain. So that's a big transformation. And obviously then, once the consumer you've converted a consumer and the consumer has purchased a product, how do you then make sure that you convert that consumer into an advocate? And how you start influencing their social network to grow the halo effect of that successful consumer. So that's the last part of the step, which is how do you grow the lifetime value of that consumer, not only the consumer himself or herself, but the entire value of his or her network. Which you do that again by digital reinforcement, social reinforcement. So that strategy of owning the hearts and minds of the consumers now, today, is enabled by marketing technology that did not exist 5 years ago. So it's an amazing new world for brands and retailers that they can tap into to really drive that level of advocacy in a non-intrusive way, really adding value in the life of the shoppers in ways that were not conceivable 5 years ago.
So let's end on this. Chatbots, keep an eye on chatbots in 2017. Any other sort of predictions? What should folks be looking at this
quickly,
year?
so the front end is the seamless experiences. The back end, equally important, is digitizing the supply chain. We see a lot of companies today that still have a lot of manual operations. 3 keywords: integrating, automating, and providing visibility. Integrating all the elements of the demand chain and the supply chain, between supply chain planning and execution, making sure that you automate all the manual processes, making sure that you provide visibility of the product throughout the entire chain, critical to the success of the company. One aspect is obviously to communicate with the consumer seamlessly across all touch points. The other equally important facet of success is to drive the supply chain to deliver on the promise. So if companies do those 2 things, drive seamless interactions with the shoppers through the entire shopping journey and digitize the supply chain, no doubt they will be successful.
All right. Thank you, Bernard.
Mike, it was a pleasure.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.